I feel like even though we've talked about some of the lands from Outlaws of Thunder Junction, we haven't really gotten into the set yet. And now we're, what, a month past release?
Yeah. So yeah, only we haven't really dived into our favorite art of the set, which is what we're going to do today. We've gone through and picked both respectively chosen our top or our best, our top five, our favorite pieces from this set.
Part of the reason we haven't done this until now is that we wanted to take time to really experience the set and play with it. And I have 35 drafts already now in my 17 lands log, which is more than I have had at any set at this point ever. I'm loving this set, though I did not expect to aesthetically going into it.
Yeah, this was the real unexpected favorite for me, where I'm like, I'm really into this, and did not have that expectation when I first heard about it.
Yeah. And I think just good mechanics and everything have really helped sell everything else.
Yeah, it's super fun.
But okay, so what kind of criteria are we using to choose our top?
So our primary criteria is looking at the art, choosing things that are impressive, skillful executions, just artistically good. Things that are thematic, that tie into the themes of what the set is about or the plane that we're on. Also things that are just memorable or moving in terms of visual style.
Right, and to act as sort of tiebreakers, I have tried to avoid focusing so much on mythics and rares, because those are the ones that are going to get played, you know, for the next 2 years, 3 years while they're in standard. They're going to continue to get lots of attention. What a few things only have this moment to shine, you know, are most of the commons and uncommons. And secondarily, does it look good at card size and when it's blown up, like you can zoom in on Arena and such. But this set was so hard because I started with, okay, look at the things that fit those main criteria, and I went through the card file on Scryfall, and I made note of literally half the cards in the set. And then I made another pass to like whittle it down to half of those, so then I was a quarter, and then I just decided I'm going to sit for a week or two and what are the cards that I just happen to think about spontaneously? And that's kind of the subset that I ended up creating this list
what I kind of did was I went through Scryfall, just looked at every single card a couple of times. I didn't make as many notes, but I really like a lot of the art in this set, and so I kind of had to default to, we've talked about this, and kind of, I guess we have our primary, secondary, and then our additional criteria is, do we like it? So a lot of the ones that I chose today are just things that I really like. Starting with Lively Dirge. Well, as we've talked about, I love playing with black cards. And I just love the posing on this. I love... This feels really thematic. We've got the zombies in their little western wear. We've got Gisa having a great time with her trusty shovel. Like, I just kind of love everything about this.
For some reason, this reads to me as in a church, and I don't know if that's right.
I think it's the background that kind of gives that feeling. I don't know if that's right either, because I think they're actually at a bar, because there's, if you look over here in the corner, there's a glass and a bottle falling off, so I feel like this might actually be more of a saloon, but the background does feel...
But it would be very much in Giza's, like, mode to do that, to basically make a church into a bar.
Yes.
Like, party.
Yes. Like, both could be true.
She's like a goth sorority girl.
Yeah, she kind of is. She kind of is.
Just in terms of mashed up archetypes.
Yes, yeah, and I love that. Yeah, I love that each one of these zombies is kind of unique. They all sort of have different characteristics, costumes, and then I really like the use of colors and the way she's posed on top of this. I don't know if it's a platform or an altar or whatever, but I am just very fond of this piece, and I really like its thematic nature for this set.
Yeah, I like that they went to the trouble to make it identifiably Gisa's shovel.
Yes, it is identifiably. Also, like, I love how gross and dirty her arms are. Like, she's
I
always
didn't notice
covered
that.
in dirt. And I love that. I love that they don't skimp on those
she's
details.
like, she is clearly about fashion.
Yes.
But like is not going to let that deter her.
Yeah.
This is just part of her look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, she's not above getting her hands dirty, clearly.
No. All right, moving on.
Yes.
All right, so my first choice, completely eschewing that thing we said about avoiding mythics and rares.
Yeah.
Though this one is not one that you just see pop up in drafts, for example, because draft is the main game mode that I play. And I play a bit of standard and explorer, and we managed to get together for Commander as a play group a couple times a month at best. So I just go through a lot of drafts. And I have played a lot of the mythics, or played against a lot of them, but this one I haven't encountered. I opened it in a physical pack, and it'll eventually end up in my Giada deck.
Oh, yeah. No,
But-
that makes sense.
But the image is just incredibly arresting to me. I just keep thinking about it. And at first I thought, this is, looking at it card size, this is kind of a photorealistic style. But that's only true when you're looking at her face. Look at the lower right part of the art. It's very impressionistic. The artist just used that differential between highly detailed and not and impressionistic to really draw focus. And I know I made the same observation about cards the last time we did a top art from Karlov Manor. But it still just floored me how they kind of tricked me into thinking that this whole rendering was just so incredibly detailed. And the face and the main body of the character it is quite detailed work, at least at card size. When you zoom in, you can see more of brushstrokes, though they may be virtual brushstrokes, I have no idea. But the wings also are more impressionistic. There's sort of a glow to them, but they're also sort of blurry, and I think that gives a sense that maybe if you are just a mere mortal who encounters her on the streets of Omenport, you don't see those wings. You just perceive someone wearing, appropriate garb for this, and that's kind of a trope that we see in a lot of fantasy and sci-fi film and TV, where you have to have an extra layer or level of perception to notice the fantastical around you, and it kind of gives that sense. But her costuming is just perfectly evocative of this set too, and its intersection with fantasy. So it's gotten the duster, the overall materials in use, this sort of bow kerchief. It is very fantasy, but it's very Western. But then the single pauldron is very fantasy. And she has, it looks like a kind of a charm on her hip there, and that seems very kind of fitting for an angel and kind of spiritual. And I just love this combination of things, and I believe the motion and the weight of everything. I've been noticing as I've looked through the card file for this and the previous set that everyone's good enough. All the artists they hire are good enough that there's not an obviously wrong thing pretty much anywhere. But some images with a lot of motion, just they are believable to me, and some seem kind of comic book-esque. Not in their level of detail, but just in the physics of it. But this, I just believe it. Yeah, it's like a frame from a movie that's been kind of painted over in this slightly stylized way.
Yeah, this one feels very cinematic. I like this a lot. I love the details they did on the fabric, and her outfit is like just down to the laces on her shoes.
Yeah.
Really, really
Lots of buckles.
Yeah.
Which is almost kind of an Innistrad-esque trait.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's kind of just
buckles
fantasy.
are very in.
I do love them. All right. Next.
Oh yeah, Spinewood's Armadillos. This is my second pick.
And this was on one of my short lists before I narrowed it down to like the top.
I liked this so much, I accidentally put it in my runner-up list too, because I forgot that it was my second pick. I've been a bit under the weather lately, so, can't be helped. But anyway, I've played with this card a bit in some of our sealed games. I think, I want to say we had this in one of the other games we played. I can't remember if we used it in. I'll have to edit that out. I can't remember if we used it in Two-Headed Giant or not, but I do recall really enjoying just seeing this happy little armadillo guy.
Yeah.
And I like that I can't really tell how big he is. I think it's implied from the size of what I think the cacti are, that he's quite large.
Oh yeah, because we see this kind of cacti in some of the deserts, and they're dwarfing
quite big. So I think the implication here is that like this armadillo is enormous.
Yeah.
And I mean, the birds for scale kind of indicate that too.
And I didn't notice until now. There's some kind of little critter down by its feet. I don't know what it is though. Some creature
down there.
Looks kind of like a Pikachu.
I mean, like, I think this is a really big armadillo, which is cool. And I just like how they used a variety of textures and kind of almost watercolor like.
Oh, absolutely. Especially on this cactus in the foreground. It's
like
beautiful.
You can see some of that more in the foreground, also in the background.
Yeah.
It's just very soft and kind of like this feels like early dawn, like maybe there's a bit of a fog settled over the landscape. And he's just out here munching on these cactus flowers. And I love the use of color. And it looks like there's some really tiny cacti, like maybe growing on his back. Like it's almost a...
Oh, yeah.
Like some kind of symbiotic relationship between the armadillo and the cacti. And I like these kinds of examples of storytelling in magic art where we kind of get to learn more about the ecosystems and the kind of things that are going on in this world outside of just, you know, the magic story.
Yeah.
So I love things like this because it inspires me to get imaginative and think about the different kinds of things that might be happening in this world in their nature. And like, just what a cool guy. Like, this is a really memorable creature for me that, like, one of the things that I thought about when I was trying to remember was like, okay, let's try and pick like one or two memorable commons or uncommons that I've played with or that just stand out. And this one came to mind repeatedly. I was like, we gotta include the armadillo.
I think one of the reasons I didn't is because I love playing it so much. I will always first pick it in draft, and I probably thought
really good.
I'm overvaluing this for its play value. So I probably don't actually like the art that much.
No, it's really good.
No, it really is that good.
And it stands out. Like, it's one of those that for me I kept thinking about. I was like, oh yeah, the armadillo. We gotta include the armadillo.
That makes me really happy. Because I didn't include any green cards in this, and that's very out of character for me.
I forced myself to not just pick black cards, so you should be very proud of me.
Yes, I am. Very much so. All right.
Oh, I love this one.
Yeah, still in the theme of non-humans, Lone Shark. Yeah. We've talked about this before in a short where someone was complaining that it was just a bit too silly and too much of a pun, a pure joke, but I think it's phenomenal. The silhouette is perfect. It's just incredibly distinct. Like the second you see this in a pack, it's...
I think this is a great example of something that reads really well at card size.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's really simple at card size. From a really simple perspective, you have a big blue shark, a yellow background, and a little red person. And there's a lot more to it than that, but that's kind of the first read. But when you zoom in, the textures on the shark are really nice. And the when we can zoom in, the characters are more... I want to say cartoony, but in a non-derogatory way, than most magic art. Most magic art, they're more stylized. And magic has been very realistic lately. And this art actually reminded me of two different, really famous artists of Americana art.
Okay.
First was Norman Rockwell, who is probably one of those famous American artists, like, all told. And if you look through his catalog, his what is the word for, it's not a repertoire with it, an artist has a portfolio. His most famous works, like half of them are just serious and fairly realistic, but with slightly...
He does have some humorous ones, like
half of them are really kind of goofy comic, overdone expressions and everything, and those really match to me the kind of mood with this pose that the main human in the foreground has. And I
like the shark's little gesture here.
Right?
Taking the payment.
Oh, yeah. And who is the other artist? I have this in my notes here. Thomas Hart Benton. This is Thomas Hartman, and you've probably seen these before.
I didn't know his name, but I have seen these.
So he did a bunch of Western art. So you have all these images of people playing fiddles and in bars and shooting rifles and everything. So it's very much sort of the themes that this set is referencing anyway. And so I thought, wow, this piece, The Loan Shark, is so reminiscent of these two artists. I wonder if that was a deliberate thing. And then I looked up the other art by Wayne Reynolds, who has many, many pieces. And no, this is just Wayne Reynolds' style.
Okay.
But it's just, so then I guess kudos to the art director for choosing to give him this piece, because it just is this perfect reference to these pieces of Americana. And so it just really ties everything together wonderfully, in my not so humble opinion. All right. Your next one.
All right, so my next one is Gem Lightfoot Sky Explorer. And I chose this one primarily for the pose and use of light. I have not played with this card, so this was not one that I chose for that reason. But I really love the way they depicted the clouds, and we can see what I assume are some of those floating mountains or rock formations that we've talked about a bit in other videos. This is another one where I kind of like what they did with the costuming, with the sort of realism meets fantasy, where we have the mechanical wings glowing blue, like the very obvious fantasy element. Yeah. And then have this kind of more like realistic sort of poncho with this kerchief. There's some straps across there that I think go to the wings, with some kind of embellishments that are almost a little bit Native American, maybe. Yeah. And then the spyglass. So just really interesting, I think, use of costuming and joining the worlds where, like, we can look at this and clearly see, like, okay, this is taking place in some kind of fantasy environment, but we do have some nice elements of realism. And I love the way, like, they've posed this character with sort of the wind in her hair. Yeah. And just, she seems very optimistic.
It's very joyous.
Yeah, it's joyous. I really like the mood of this piece.
I hadn't looked at this one zoomed in before, but I had assumed these was like bronze or something, but now that I'm looking at it, it looks like there's like wood grain on the...
They have kind of a wooden texture, so I don't know.
That adds a really nice different texture to the whole thing.
And then, like, I don't know what the blue stuff is, but it kind of has that magical charge, ether. Like, there's something going on here that's fantastical. We don't need to think about it too much. That's somebody else's problem. But I just really like this, and I kept coming back to it. I was like, you know, I really want to highlight that. And it's an uncommon. It is a legendary creature, so, you know, we might see a little bit more of Gem, but this is one that I haven't played with. I haven't run across anyone else playing with it, I don't think. So I wanted to take a minute to highlight this, because this felt like one of those pieces that might kind of get forgotten as we move through with the sets.
That is a good call. All right, next I have a common... but it is the best black common, I think.
It's a very good one.
In draft, Consuming Ashes. And this one, I absolutely broke one of my own rules, which was looking good at card size. This one, and I think it's actually a printing error or something. All the copies I've seen are incredibly dark. You can hardly tell what's going on. But when you look at this image, this has such Exorcist crawling down the stairs backwards vibes. I hear, or like the most recent Stranger Things season, minor spoilers, when people start suspending in the air and you hear the cracking of their bones and everything. That's what I hear in my head. But she clearly is in control of it, so I feel like she's doing that kind of thing, but on purpose, and making dark deals to accomplish her ends.
Very, very black.
And then, technically, I love the cinematic language of all this motion blur up front. It's not even out of focus. It's not just depth of field, which is part of what it is, but like it looks like, I think this is like her skirt spinning around and kind of whooshing by, so you have that blur on the nearest part, and there's just such tremendous motion and power, and you can almost hear this image.
Yeah, this one's really good. I'm glad you chose this one because I agree at card size. I did not really appreciate what was going on in this piece. Probably for the very reason that it's so dark, it's kind of hard to see what's going on when you see it in print. But yeah, when you look at this blown up, it's really impressive.
So intimidating.
It is.
And creepy, and I love it.
It's, yeah, all things we love.
Yes. All right.
Okay, so this next one that I chose is Gold Pan. And I chose this purely for the artist's use of light and reflection. Mm-hmm. I wanted to pick some more things that felt kind of evocative of the world of Thunder Junction and the more Western theme. So I liked this for the, like, sifting for gold element. And just, I love the way they depicted light, both in the water, in the reflection of the gold of the metal dish, this little gemstone that this person has unearthed. And again, this is probably one that we're not going to be talking about much going forward. It's not a particularly great card in the game.
Yep.
But as I was looking through the art, I just kept going back to this repeatedly, and I found it very eye-catching, especially the, not only are we seeing the light, we're seeing this kind of prismatic color depicted in the reflection of the bowl. Mm-hmm. So you have like the reds, greens, and blues that are coming out there, which are just really beautiful and kind of kept drawing me back to this.
Yeah, that's really impressive that the artist has both portrayed the patina, and the sense this is a worn thing, and then on top of that has the light playing off of it. That's really cool.
Like, there's a lot of layers here. Then we have the water in front of that too. So not only do we have the reflections in the water, we have the reflections within the stones. We have the little, like, the gemstone inside there, and then in the metal dish itself, there's a lot of layers here to appreciate.
That is true.
And outside of that, I mean, that's kind of all that's going on here. You know, we don't have the same cinematic flourishes of some of the other pieces, but I really appreciated this one and the way they executed that.
Nice. All right, here's the one I'm going to cheat on terribly, because I actually am trying to cite 4 different pieces of art.
This is your way of, like, shoehorning in
yes,
3 additional pieces.
So, Andreas Zafiratos, I'm guessing is the pronunciation, close to it, has at least 4 pieces in the set, which are all phenomenal in really similar ways, and they're all in the realm of photorealism, or at least, you know, quite realistic. But the real thing that I'm drawn to in all 4 cases is the hands of these characters. In all 4 cases, they're just, the hands tell the story and the pose as a whole. But let me go through the others that I'm not calling out as strongly.
Unofficial.
Yeah. So Lila, undefeated slick shot. Both of her hands are in these different poses that convey power. I mean, she's casting spells, and you can tell, and she looks competent and threatening, and the shape of her and the way her coat is kind of flared out just really portrays this sense of action. And then Jolene, plundering pugilist, character, she's Zangief. She is just such power, and she's this one's incredibly comedic, where the other ones aren't at all. But she's, you know, literally punching someone out of their boots and off frame.
Yeah, you can see the shoes.
Yeah. And
then she has her Cobra horse behind her.
Yeah, the Cobra horse. So each of these, besides having a really strong character, like it's not just a well-drawn human being, but they're the photo, or the main character in the picture tells a story, but then the background also does tremendous world building work too. And the last of these the other 3 is Vadimir, who I think actually does the least work in the background of the image. It's primarily just the foreground character, but look how menacing those hands are. In his case, notice him first, and it's only as you kind of look down and notice the less obvious part, you see, oh, dude's a vampire in a really creepy Nosferatu handish way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I noticed that.
Yeah, so it's like
because I'm pretty sure I opened this in one of my pools.
Yeah, it's emergent dread. You have to look more carefully. But once again, the hands, he's stalking.
Yeah.
But you don't notice it at first, which is very appropriate for stalking.
It is appropriate, yeah.
So
it would not be effective as a vampire if he was super noticeable.
But however, the one of these that I thought was the most impressive was Campbell. In his case, his pose and his hands, we know from his initial incarnation in Kaladesh, he was vizier of something. So he's usually in a position of leadership, and I think the implication there was he's a blatantly corrupt character. I mean, he's in Orzhov colors, and that's basically the colors of government corruption.
Kind of their thing
and
a
so
lot of the time.
That seemed like his role there. He was a taxing kind of mechanic. But here, he's looking down. It feels like he's giving orders to people who he views as below him, who are probably physically below him. But he's so at ease. He's leaning. He doesn't have to, point in a rigid way. It's almost he's deigning to tell people what to do. But the way he's also shadowed, presumably by the overhang of this building he's in, makes it feel like he, on this desert planet, has the luxury to kind of stand in the shade and dictate to those out doing the real work, to his underlings. Behind him, we have this figure in a silver hat, so I assume they're all part of the Sterling Company. This is the Sterling livery, and this is obviously Prosperity, because Prosperity has all the Sterling Company white and black and silver everywhere. So he's clearly working with them or for them. But look at this armor; it's so sci-fi. So that must be from Kamigawa.
Yeah.
So we have storytelling there, and then behind that we have these whitewashed buildings and these industrial towers. And the industrial towers, I mean, they're subtle and sort of in the background, but they kind of speak to, wow, this place has sprung up and is so successful. So it's, I don't know if opulence is the right word, but wealth, certainly. Yeah. But this is more world building of the Sterling Company in general, rather than this particular piece of art, but this does it so well, which is convey deserts are dusty and dirty.
Yeah.
And this place is sparkling white. How opulent is it to be able to maintain that? How many people are they just paying to just keep things shiny and clean? So yeah, I think this art there are so many layers in it, literally and in terms of what it's doing story-wise.
Yeah, that's a great pick.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with this artist's work in this set. I haven't really looked too much into their work in other sets, but wow. All right.
Oh, I think this is my last one.
Yep.
So the last one I chose was Lush Oasis, which is one of the tap lands that commits a crime by pinging an opponent. And I believe I've mentioned previously that I'm a bit of a sucker for water in depicted in art. I really enjoy these kinds of tranquil oasis depictions, water features.
Yeah.
And I really like the colors of this one. The way there's waterfalls shown coming out of the cactuses in the background. This was one of those places that, like, I want to go there. I want to visit this location.
Yes.
And one of I find often that the blue-green lands, maybe there's just something complimentary about seeing, like, the lush green side of nature plus some kind of water, because like when I think about what are lands that really stand out to me, like one of the first lands that I remember seeing when I started playing Magic that really caught my eye was Breeding Pool, like one of the original printings of it. So maybe that's where this is speaking to for me, but I feel like this is a really nice example of, again, kind of what we're seeing outside of the different towns that we're exploring in this plane.
Yeah.
We can appreciate how big these cactuses are from the scale when we're looking towards the ones in the back, and like the shadow that this one in the front is casting. And you can also feel that from like the amount of water being displaced by the waterfall falling. That really gives us that sense of like, oh, this is coming from a really high level of height. This is not just like a little trickle of water coming down. Like, I feel this is one of those for me that I feel like I can hear this. Like, if I think about it, I can imagine the rushing water, like the tranquility of being here, imagine the little birds that are singing. There's some little birds in the background that you can kind of vaguely see.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful. I want to go there.
It's just, I want to go to this resort. Like, and I just thought this was really pretty. This is another one of those that I'm like, we're probably going to play this in our various draft and sealed decks to fix our colors, but again, like, this is not something that we're going to see often outside of a limited format, probably.
I don't know. I'm really liking these ping lands, and I don't know, I'm just, right now I'm playing with lots of crime in my skeletons commander deck, so I'm using all of the crime lands. But that's also because I'm just trying out all of the like geese.
I mean, I'm using some of these because I needed more dual lands in a couple decks I built, and I didn't want to go spend a bunch of money. So I was like, and they're real pretty, serviceable, and they're pretty. Like, am I really going to turn my nose up at this? No, I'm not. So maybe we will see more of these. I think they're really nice. And hey, sometimes you need to commit a crime.
Amen. All right. My last one actually has similar motivations. Like, I think the center of gravity of this set is like Rakdos, like the main Rakdos card, like just this enormous cowboyified being crushing stuff and tearing stuff up. I mean, it's called Outlaws of Thunder Junction. We have the bonus sheet is all about crimes. And technically, I think this is supposed to be a crime. This is someone who's broken into a safe or a vault, right? But this moment is so peaceful and tranquil and beautiful. The way the light streams in, and while it's a crime to be breaking in, it's a solitary thing. You don't. If you're breaking in, no one knows you're there. If you're successful, and she seems to be. And there's this sword and this treasure chest and these scrolls up above that actually make it look more way high fantasy than the rest of the set. And partly I just really like high fantasy. I'm much more about that than the Wild West stuff. And the Wild West is kind of in the background here. I mean, the vault itself, the vault door, is part of that world. If you look outside, you can see what I think is the Sterling Company's structure, like archways and stuff. But it also wouldn't feel too out of place in Rivendell. Except for the vault door.
Except for the door.
But fundamentally, I mentioned that I pared down my list by thinking, what card do I just happen to think of occasionally? And this is that card. I just keep thinking of this, and it's just beautiful and alluring in the same sense that I think the Lush Oasis is. It's this moment of tranquility that I am drawn to.
Yeah, I feel that from this too. There's something very peaceful about it. I really like that.
Yeah. And I will say, I think this one has a technical flaw in that at card size, I couldn't tell what this rear arm was. When it's blown up here on the screen, I can see that she's, I guess, either holding or something slightly levitating over that hand, but I thought it might be a mechanical arm, or I just couldn't tell. But regardless, it was still just the image that kept coming back. It is just my favorite. At least right now. I have a lot of favorites. All right. We'll be back soon to talk about bonus sheets?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.